One of the most iconic hybrid classes in Pathfinder 1E is the Swashbuckler. Daring figures that embody the spirit of high adventure, romance, and drama. But where there's positive shining yang, there must also be dark, brooding yin. So today I'll be looking at the Swashbuckler's shadow, the Slayer. A merciless executioner that combines cunning, skill, and savagery into a terror weapon of a class. That can strike from the shadows, descend from on high like an avenging angel, or carve a bloody path right into the heart of your next Pathfinder 1E campaign. But before we begin with the Slayer, if you're in need of a one-shot Pathfinder 1st Edition adventure, please have a look at Sorcerous, the Dietrich House. Designed for a party of 4 level 3 characters, this adventure has sinister mysteries, unsolved crimes, and a haunted house with lurking terrors to challenge your players. As well as unexpected treasures courtesy of the dynamic and thematic loot system, which makes for unique and compelling rewards for parties willing to brave the depths of the Dietrich House. Available right now on DriveThruRPG. Now then, the Slayer. As a Slayer, you have a D10 hit die. This puts you shoulder to shoulder with the toughest frontline classes, such as the Fighter. The Slayer has the fast base attack bonus. Your base attack bonus is equal to your level. This is great for your ability to hit and your combat maneuver bonus. The Slayer also has a large number of skill points at 6 plus intelligence mod. As a Slayer, your proficiencies are all simple and martial weapons. This gives you plenty of options for how to deal with your enemies. You're also proficient with light and medium armor, as well as shields, except tower shields. Now, let's move on to the ability scores that matter for the Slayer. First up, strength and dexterity. These are both very important. Choose whichever one is most important for your fighting style, but a mix of both of them is ideal. Next, constitution. Most of your abilities as a Slayer will put you close to the action. You don't lack for long-range options, but you'll do your best work close up. Next, intelligence. This ability score is a low priority, but it may be necessary for some feats, so don't neglect it completely. Similarly, wisdom may help cover your weak will saves. Finally, charisma can be very valuable to the Slayer, as it powers your persuasion skills. Now that you have a grasp on what matters in terms of ability scores, let's talk about your race options. First up, nothing wrong with a good old-fashioned human. The race is solid and well-rounded, and the extra feat is very useful for things like exotic weapon proficiencies or weapon focus. You could even grab yourself an extra Slayer talent right off the bat. The human favored class bonus for Slayer will give you a new Slayer talent every 6 levels. It may not sound that impressive, but think of it as exchanging 6 HP for a feat. Next up, Half-Elf. This has many of the same strengths as the human, but it's a little bit better for charisma-focused builds. As a Half-Elf, you have the option of the Ancestral Arms trait, which can give an exotic proficiency. You also have a very good favored class bonus. You get 1/2 your level as a bonus on bluff checks to feint for your sneak attacks. Another interesting option are Catfolk. Being a Catfolk gives you access to some unique Slayer talents, such as Deadly Scratch. This allows you to apply poison to your claws. Graceful Faller. This allows you to always land on your feet. Nimble Climber gives you a +4 bonus to all climb checks. Finally, Vicious Claws. This lets you use D8s instead of D6s when sneak attacking with your claws. Another racial option with access to unique Slayer traits is the Samsaran. You have access to Eternal Optimist. This gives you a +2 to AC and saves against certain studied targets. These targets are dragons, outsiders, fae, or undead. Experience across ages. 1 time per day, per every 5 levels. 1 time per day at 1st, 2 times per day at 5th, etc. You can make a knowledge check as a swift action, with ranks equal to your Slayer level. Inured to Terror. After failing a fear-based save, as an immediate action, you can make a new save to reduce the severity by 1 step. Reduce panicked to frightened, frightened to shaken, or shaken to unaffected. Also, the DC of checks to intimidate you is increased by 2. There's also Mountainside Ambush. If you sneak attack a target below you from solid ground that is unaware of your presence, you deal max sneak attack damage. Finally, you could consider Mystic Veil. If you have an intelligence score of 11, you can cast Silent Image as a spell-like ability 1 time per day for every 2 Slayer levels you have. Your caster level is equal to your Slayer level. Alright, now let's move on to class features. The defining class feature of the Slayer is Studied Target. You can study an enemy you can see as a move action. Against your studied opponent, you receive +1 to attack and damage rolls, and a +1 to the DC of all your Slayer abilities. You can only maintain this bonus on 1 enemy at a time. The study remains in effect until the enemy dies or you choose to study a new enemy. If you deal sneak attack damage to an enemy, you can study it as an immediate action, applying all of your bonuses to damage. At 5th level, 10th level, 15th level, and 20th level, the bonus damage and skill DCs increase by +1. Also at 5th level, 10th level, 15th level, and 20th level, you can maintain your study against 1 additional target at the same time. Finally, at 7th level, you can study as a swift action. Next up, Track. You add 1/2 your Slayer level to survival checks to follow tracks. Another class feature that's really going to form your identity as a Slayer are your Slayer talents. At every even level, you choose a special ability from the list of Slayer talents. Here are some of my picks. Blood Reader. This allows you to know the remaining HP of your studied opponent. Next, Deadly Range. You must be at least 4th level before you can take this talent. This adds 10 feet to the normal 30-foot range for your sneak attacks. You can take this talent more than once, and each time it increases the range an additional 10 feet. Next, Jaguar's Grace. In order to qualify for this talent, you must be at least level 4. When you have Jaguar's Grace, you don't take the normal -4 when attempting to do non-lethal damage with a lethal weapon. Now, this is a necessary prerequisite for Jaguar's Pounce. Once you have Jaguar's Pounce, when you deal sneak attack damage, you can attempt a disarm or trip combat maneuver as an immediate action. This does not provoke an attack of opportunity. Finally, against this combat maneuver, your target is treated as if they were flat-footed. Another option worth considering is Ranger Combat Style. This grants you a feat from the list provided by a Ranger Combat Style. You can take this feat at 1st, 6th, and 10th level. As an example, you could choose Two-Handed Weapon. You could get Power Attack at 2nd level, Furious Focus at 6th, and Improved Sunder at 10th level. Do this by using your 2nd, 6th, and 10th level Slayer talents. You could also try Rogue Talent. This allows you to take Rogue talents instead of Slayer talents. Finally, a good utility option is Trap Finding. This gives you Disable Device as a class skill, and you gain Trap Finding and Trap Sense just like a rogue. The next important feature to be aware of is Sneak Attack. This functions as the rogue's sneak attack, except it's 1d6 at 3rd level and increases by 1d6 every 3 levels thereafter. Next, Stalker. At 7th level, you add your studied bonus to Disguise, Intimidate, and Stealth checks against your target. The last class feature I'm going to go over are your Advanced Slayer talents. These are accessible at 10th level. First, Armored Marauder. This gives you a proficiency with heavy armor and also reduces the armor check penalty by 1 for every 6 Slayer levels you have. This talent will also give you access to the Armored Swiftness talent. This allows you to move at your full speed in heavy armor. It also increases the maximum dexterity bonus by 1 for every 6 Slayer levels you have. Finally, Reaping Stalker. A scythe or sickle wielded by you is treated as one size category larger for determining its damage die. Also, you increase its critical threat range by 1. This does not stack with other crit-enhancing effects. Now, let's move on to some of the feats that will benefit you as a Slayer. First off, a good standby, Extra Slayer Talent. This gives you an extra Slayer talent. Next, Killing Flourish. This requires the Intimidating Prowess feat, which allows you to add your Strength modifier to intimidation checks along with your Charisma bonus. The feat also requires 4 ranks in Intimidate and for you to be a level 4 Slayer. With this feat, when you reduce a target to 0 hit points, you can, as a swift action, attempt an Intimidate check against all foes within 30 feet. Later on, once you have Killing Flourish, you can get Gruesome Slaughter. This requires Killing Flourish, Intimidate 11 ranks, and to be an 11th level Slayer. Creatures that have been demoralized by your Killing Flourish must succeed at a con save DC 10 plus 1/2 your character level plus your Strength or Dexterity modifier, whichever is higher. If this check is failed, the creature is sickened. You also have the option of Seething Hatred. Choose a ranger favored enemy type. When this creature type is your studied target bonus is doubled. Later on, you can take the feat Extreme Prejudice. This requires Seething Hatred and 3d6 sneak attack damage die. Against the studied target that's in your favored enemy class, sneak attack damage die are d8s instead of d6s. An interesting possibility is using the Barroom Brawler feat to get a new Seething Hatred enemy type, if you are in a situation that calls for it. Rules as written, this is a possibility. Next, Surprise Maneuver. This feat requires combat expertise and 3d6 sneak attack damage die. Whenever you are flanking or your enemy is denied its dexterity bonus to AC, you get a bonus equal to your number of sneak attack damage die on combat maneuver checks. This works very well with Jaguar's Pounce. Finally, definitely consider combat maneuver feats. Obviously, combat expertise. This requires an intelligence of 13 as a prerequisite. With this feat, you can get improved trip and greater trip. Also, improved disarm and greater disarm, both of which will benefit your Jaguar's Pounce. Also, in the specific case of trip, if you're wielding a sickle, which would synergize with Reaping Stalker, if you fail, you could drop and retrieve your sickle. This is made easy with a weapon cord. This makes retrieving a dropped weapon a swift action. Finally, a bread and butter feat, improved feint and greater feint. This is one of the best ways to deny your enemy its dexterity bonus in the heat of combat. Finally, I'd like to leave you with some inspiration for your Slayer. First up, Guts from Berserk. He could really be a lot of things. A barbarian, a fighter, even a paladin if you really want to stretch the definition of that class. But the terror and carnage Guts visits on just about anything that dares get in his way is very Slayer. Also, how could I mention Guts without mentioning his little brother, the Goblin Slayer? He clearly has the Seething Hatred feat. Another great inspiration is the Doom Slayer. It's in the name after all. The Slayer class is savage, and the brutality of the Doom Slayer is legendary. So get in there and rip and tear. Also, from the grim dark future of the 40th millennium come the Night Lords. This chapter of Renegade Space Marines really encompassed the terror aspect of the Slayer. This legion's reputation was so fearsome that worlds would surrender rather than have their worst nightmares brought to life by the Night Lords. Also, from the grimdark future, the Incubi, particularly for half-elf slayers. The Dark Eldar Incubi get the grim brutality mixed with incredible skill aspect of the Slayer. Also, the way they feed off carnage and suffering fits pretty well. Finally, Malthael, from Diablo 3, Reaper of Souls. Dual-wielding sickles is a fantastic idea. Seriously, do it. You won't be sorry you did, but your enemies will be. Thank you for watching the D6 damage class analysis for The Slayer in Pathfinder 1st Edition. If you'd like to support my work outside of YouTube, check out Sorcerous, a dark fantasy mystery RPG available right now on Steam. Or have a look at Sorcerous: The Dietrich House, a Pathfinder 1E haunted house adventure available on DriveThruRPG. And if you'd like to take your game further, join the D6 Damage Discord, where we have fantastic discussions about all aspects of the game, character builds, game mastering advice, and much, much more. The links are down in the description.